In this video, I will teach you how an artificial intelligence can recover income for you. Today, we are going to see an incredible case of how a typical e-commerce store managed to recover thousands of dollars in sales due to abandoned carts using AI.
Also, if you want, I can send you a 20% discount code to your number. If you want to take your business or that of your clients to the forefront.
And how to implement it. You can buy it with confidence. Stay until the end, as this is just the beginning of this trend. Let's first understand that cart abandonment is a common phenomenon in e-commerce, and that it has a significant impact on sales. Important statistical estimates, for example, according to studies by the Weimar Institute, an authority on usability and user experience in e-commerce, the global cart abandonment rate is around 70%. This means that almost 7 out of 10 people who add a product to the cart do not complete the purchase. This high percentage of abandonment represents million-dollar economic losses for online stores around the world, affecting their profitability and growth. To better understand why customers abandon their carts, it is important to consider the following factors that can deter your customers from completing their purchase. Number one, problems in the checkout process, either due to complex payments or limited payment options. Another is additional expenses, unexpected, also due to lack of trust in the store, either due to an insecure interface that can generate trust or technical problems, such as a slow website that frustrates users. Well, and what can you do to reduce? Well, there are some traditional ways to evaluate it, like the ones you see here, but they can be complex and can take time. That is why I will show you how generative AI with voice assistant manages to dramatically minimize this leakage statistic in less than a month of implementation. If you want to skip this application of a real case, you can go directly to how we implemented it later, if not stay. I know it will open your eyes. We will explore a case study on how a Shopify store used AI to recover sales from abandoned carts as an online fashion store. Like many others, Elo faced a big problem. Yes, abandoned carts, in their case around 70 by, and it was of course generating a substantial loss of revenue each month before using Playa. The Doyo store was receiving approximately 10,000 visits per month. The average amount of its tickets was 50. However, with an abandonment rate of 70 per, he was losing about $5,000 of potential tickets per month. To address the damage, he hired a part-time support team. Let's analyze this with 100,000 visits and an abandoned cart rate of 70 per, that meant about 7,000. Abandoned carts, assuming the team can address 20 carts per hour. They would need 350 hours per month just for recovery tasks, with 4 specialists. Working part-time, that is 20 hours per week each. The total support hours are 320 per month. However, only 40% of these hours are dedicated to cart recovery, which results in 128 hours per month. The cost of these recovery tasks is significant. Assuming an hourly wage of 10, the owner was spending $1,280 per month on manual recovery, which represents approximately 37% of their potential revenue. Despite these efforts, the recovery rate was only about 20%. So the owner decided to implement an AI boss agent to address this problem. Here's why. It's a game changer. Firstly, it delivers an ideal result to significantly increase recovery rates. Secondly, the probability of success is high due to its personalized and timely interaction with customers. Thirdly, it speeds up the time from cart abandonment to recovery, often converting sales within minutes. Lastly, it requires minimal effort to implement, adopt, and scale. Finally, the recovery rate increased from 20 to 55 by recovering over an additional $9,000 in sales each month. And in order to make our GUA voice agent a reality, we will use a very powerful automation tool that I already mentioned in a previous video. It is a counterpart of Sapia, which is a powerful tool to be able to automate and integrate diversity of other tools. Basically works as an orchestrator. So as you can see here, I have built the 2 automated scenarios, which will serve as a template to build the same download. You can try our video description, and I will also leave a link so you can use this mail tool and you can explore. And to mention in this view, basically all flows are going to communicate with each other. The first one that I have been selecting is basically in charge of capturing the signal from the store, in this case Shopify, and communicates with other tools to be able to make this conversation a reality. And this last flow will basically be in charge of sending that promotional discount code message to the customer. And also it will help us with the transcriptions in a spreadsheet so that it can later be used for evaluation purposes by the customer support team. So let's start first with the first scenario. And once inside, we have this automation. there are 4 modes. The 4 modes in which we can basically add them from this icon button. Let's see that step. We will use Shopify and we add it. And the way they are going to join together is you join them and they will join by themselves. And that's how the automation happens now. Hey, I'm going to briefly write how each of these modules is configured so that you know the function in this first. This is the Shopify module to review abandoned carts. The only thing to do is ULA your Shopify store, and this data stays as is. And in this case, we have another second module that is going to get the product data from the Shopify. Aren't very useful because later we are going to use it in some in our last module. Now, as you can see, when I click on this module on the right side in the panel, a series of data with information appears. This happens because I made a PR with real data, in this case from this PR store, that basically allows me to see what data will be useful to me and that I can simply drag and drop in this case. As I already explained here, we do not have the product ID that will help us so that our voice agent can now quickly know what product is being referred to when the customer asks questions. This text aggregator mode basically compacts many isolated texts that I can simply drag and drop in this case. As I already explained here, we do not have the product ID that will help us so that our voice agent can now quickly know what product is being referred to when the customer asks questions. This text aggregator mode basically compacts many isolated texts into a single one. So here I am collecting data on general product characteristics that will also be useful so that people from you can use it in a conversation. And it is the last mode that basically is a configuration that connects me with a voice tool in. And now we are going to explain here what you have to have very clear idea. Let's challenge this configuration again. It is this URL link so that it will help us to finally connect so that our Shopify store gives us the data that we need for our test, for example. And we are making some first configurations. Now we will show you how well to be able to configure our market of the Shopify module. We give it to our store here in the discount section. We are going to create our discount. As you see, I have it created before, simple and fast. The only thing you have to make sure is to specify the percentage of the discount and the validity of the or then go to configuration. And here we are going to inhabit the very important permissions, for we are going to go to the payment or checkout screen. Then in the customer promotion section, go to the shipping address phone number. Here you will mark optional or mandatory. Either of the two will help you so that Shopify enables a field for or enter your code number. And if we can direct our message, then in marketing options, make sure you have SMS marking so that Shopify can get the user's consent for us to send SMS messages to their phone. Once this is configured, we save and move on to the next thing. As I mentioned, BTI is 2 emerging companies that are responsible for being able to build and help us test and deploy voice agents and Sur Learning, but it's worth it because it allows us to be very flexible and to be able to customize our voice agents as much as we want. It is one of the great attributes that I find in Daddy, unlike others. So if you are very interested in this topic, you can subscribe to be able to be up to date and well to create our AG. We go to the dashboard section, create our account, and this view will appear here. It is very useful to analyze the analytics of the calls that our agents will make that we create. In this interesting case, the reason for why the calls ended, EO can draw conclusions about where to make the adjustments. Now in this panel, here we are going to use it to get our agent. But first we need to have clarity about what capacity we want this agent to have, and for that we do it. And here I present the platform B, with which we are going to build our voice agents with AI. And this is one of the platforms that has gained popularity among those that are still emerging in this competitive field. And I can tell you in advance that it surprised me quite a bit, because it is a provider that allows you to customize your voice quite a bit, and that gives you more ability to create your own account. I will leave this link to the description so you can access the 10 credits that you are looking for. And to start the implementation, go to the dashboard section, create your account, and this list will appear here. You must first be clear about what capabilities you want your voice agent to have. So let's give you a recap on that first. Our voice agent will handle capabilities that will facilitate a flexible conversation with the interlocutor. That is why you will have to be able to assist with questions about the abandoned item in question, also answer frequently asked questions and answers about the electronic store. Of course, as we have reviewed, we'll send discount SIGO. Depending on the affirmation and consent of the interlocutor, and will be able to evaluate the conversation by itself through some predefined ones that we have made. Return to this view again. We are going to configure the following fields: assistant, phone number, files, and tools. The case of blocks and squats, we will leave it for another video, are more advanced configurations. So for that, we start in assistants, we create our own assistant, we give it the name we prefer. Here we suggest templates. We will create the blank one, and once created, you will have access to this view. As I have it, before continuing writing this part, I have to be clear at two things.
The first is that we are creating a type of agent from these configurations that is a web agent. Okay. A web agent, when you have finished making the configurations that right now we will see right now, let's review. You can click here on this demo assistant icon, and you can share it as a link to anyone on your network. And you can open that link and basically have an interaction like the one that Vapi on the official Vapi page can have by clicking on the microphone. You will be able to hold a conversation. As I already indicated, this is the web agent mode that is limited because it does not allow real-time interaction with data from other applications in real time. So for our use case, we are going to use a dynamic type agent that the configuration is not here, but we will see it in more detail less what structure it has. But let it be very clear that I recommend you quite familiarize yourself from here, because here descriptions of what can be and what cannot be are quite friendly. So let's continue until part 1 gave the name to my Vapi agent here, and we will be able to configure up to 6 configurations. We have a model in the functions already, the topic
we are going to touch on for this case, and the analysis that we will also touch on this is going to be a fairly complete agent. Now in the case of models, you realize this refers to the generative language model, for example OpenAI, among other competitors that you can select here as a provider, and the type of specific model, in this case the date. This video is the most current and very powerful GPT-4, and here we have, for example, the first message that we want to start. There are 2 types of modalities that it can have, whether it is receiving calls from a client and putting it that way, or where you had a proactive action and already a client, and that will be the balance that will start. Now here is basically the PR or the instructions that we want our agent to take into consideration here. I recommend being as extensive as you consider, thinking that you are training, let's say, a 0 person. So you indicate all the possible cases, what should be done, when should be done, when it is not. It is a matter of really fine-tuning this so that it is what you decide. Then simply to review as an example, I indicate if the yes, when, what is your role? And it is a bit of the context that business and I indicate to you. If you indicate to him, for example, I indicate to him, you propose a special discount by SMS. You can also give a brief description of the abandoned article, but here I put an ellipsis.
Because as I say, from this point from here, it is limited. You need dynamic data with which you can consult in this. You can consult, and here you cannot enter, you can do exactly the second way that we are going to see. However, it is useful, continue looking at what you can. How can you bring the prompt for your agent? Here I tell him, if the user is interested in buying you, give him the 20% discount. If not, is interested, ask him if he would like you to send him the same discount code. And if he accepts, then you activate this function, abandon promo code, which is a function, and we can create it here in tools, and you can create and here you can name it so that people take it into account, this type of considerations. One can do then to finish configuring this section. You can add a knowledge base to extend response capacity in our proprietary information. Let's say the business here, I added a PDF of questions and answers for electronic commerce that are from this section of files. You choose a file, you upload it, and once inside, you can already have this available. You already have a document available backup that you can attach it to this agent, and I have it selected. We choose the temperature.
Remember, the value of 0 is much more exact with the instructions that we give the value of 1. The bot allows itself to be more spontaneous. It does not necessarily go joined. Now maximum tokens, we leave it at 250. It works quite well. And I like this a lot because it can also have the possibility of detecting emotions from the user's tone of voice. And that is, people will modulate their tone of voice to be more empathic. Once finished, we are going to move on to, now I want you to keep in mind here something very important, that is this section. The latency at the moment we have seen, we have configured the generative model of, and this is an external provider. Of course, it has its own cost.
likewise transcriber equally with the voice provider. In this case, see these three providers together with will determine the cost per call. If you see it in the pricing information, that makes it quite clear to you what is the distribution, let's say of the cost of a call being supposed VP, that leaves us a fixed amount 5 cents per minute, and the rest will be attributed, for example, to the voice with the different probes that you can choose the telephone. Of course, in this case, we are going to establish that we can choose between another, we can have configured the desktop generation models, and finally, the model that writes voice, text, and they are our writers now that will determine, of course, the cost. Now you have to take into account, because based on the model that you are choosing, they are going to adjust. If I have this marked this thing that is quite optimal, and a latency, as long as it is less than a second, much better. So we are going well on this side, being with the transcribers, we are going to choose in, if is the case you choose the language that you need be in English for an English audience, or is it for regions of Spain, and here with Nova 2. This model we choose now for the Voice Pro, or we choose Cartesia, for example, that work quite well, and this voice model that is with this identification code, and by certain you can choose from here, but to test these voice agents previously you can go to voice libraries, and here you will have a large list of possible voices that you can choose. Simply navigate, search, scrolling, try those voices with play. If you like, make sure to copy your ID or identifier to use, for example, where we are configuring, or especially the dynamic configuration. Continuing here, for example, you can continue being very thorough for the configuration. With I say versatility is a great tool for this. And here, for example, I prefer to enable the noise filter. While the user or also our agent repeat with or say every time the user, for example, and then that emphasizes a more dynamic conversation. With configuring now our functions, we can add tools or tools that we had created in VAP. What is a tool? It is basically enabling capabilities to our agent so that it can send or receive data from external sources during the call in this case. And I already have attached a tool that I have created, and we can grab as many as we need for our case. Those are created here in tools. Here we are going to create a new tool as we work with the make scenario. We click make, this server URL field will open for this. We will use our second make scenario that we have here. We click on this one that receives the data from the first scenario once inside the first section of the automation. Let's make sure that we have added this one from web custom and configure it. Simple, give it a name like, and I have it, and this URL will be populated with which they can copy it from here. This does basically serve as a trigger that will listen when the first scenario sends data once the call is finished, and it will be able to trigger the rest of the automation that we will review in a moment. Returning to this field, we paste and save. Then they can complete this section of the tool. It is important to add a name to the tool and a description with which we configure. I will be able to understand when it needs to be activated, and this inscription helps a lot to see. Also an ID code will have been created. You can copy it and we can use it later when creating our dynamic agent later, if it is useful to have it ready going back to the wizard. Here we go in the predefined functions part A. I prefer to enable our agent to be able to end the call when they extend necessarily, and here we can even add a third-party number. So that our agent can do it here, we can add a number of a real person to which our agent can transfer. This only works for a telephone call agent and not an agent, and here we can add as many call-in phrases. As we said, this here, it is going to be discarded, but it still appears. It's the same as tools, or to now, it is important to add the number with which we are going to import the number. And in this case, again, it is important to add the phone number. We can buy it in Bapia 2, or we can import it. In this case, I use the provider. And in these fields, we will fill in both the number, the account, and the token. We can get it from our account there. In account info, we will be able to copy and paste that data. Once copied your data, paste a name or label. We already have what is necessary here. Star, for example, in setting has to do with our agent calls a number that we indicate. In this case, it can be the same one that I already indicated, the name of the assistant who is going to receive it. And in the, basically our people are going to call a certain number. That here we can also indicating what type of agent we be able to do. And to finish configuring our assistant, we mark the advanced weight, and we will find this privacy section to manage the sensitive data of our users. So I recommend for this case, simply leave the audio recording activated configuration. We can manage the delay times at our convenience. This, of course, for each type of conversation. For our case, we leave. As it is, the message is quite good. This section is in the server field. We are going to add our link that we added previously here. I recommend server message. Add the transcript option. if it is not activated, so that you can then adequately summarize the conversation, and there are more configurations that can be added or choose a quite versatile and allows to adapt, or in other words, different types of conversations we are going to design. Analysis, and we find the summary section, and here it asks by default for a prompt. How should it summarize? We leave it as success evaluation here. We leave what role it should have, so that it can evaluate itself. The success we mark is pass-fail. There are other ones, but this works very well. In data structure, prompt. This is quite extensive, but here the 5 indicators of positive call center are detailed and specified neutral, negative, and the format that I asked for, as I wanted to return in our mail scenario with this across then. This type of prompt, I am also going to share it with you with the links for all the structure that we will start to then recreate our agent. And finally, to share your agent, as I indicated, you mark this icon assistant demo and in the browser. It will appear in this way. Anyone that you share this link with will be able to enter the agent that you have configured. We have seen how to implement an agent web. Now we finish configuring our dynamic agent. In Make, with this HTTP module, make a request, and here are fields that we need. First of all, you have filled out this link as it is. We are from the VAPI documentation like this, and everything that comes here are basically a structure that the APs use, which is basically a technology to be able to communicate applications with each other. In this case, therefore, we will use the send method. In the headers, in the authorization, we will use this value. And here you will put the name of your API. You have it in your application. Here in your profile, you click it, you select API keys, and here in private key. Copy and paste it in that section, making sure to give a space with the word. You also need to put it as it is content, and the value application as here, this data as it is type of body, and content type JSON. JSON is exactly what the structure that we are going to need to use in this field, since it is the only way that applications talk with this format. How we are going to follow the structure of this format? Well, in this link of the VAPin documentation. This URL shares with us what the possibilities are when creating a call to your agent, and therefore we make it for all the possibilities that we can give to our agent. For this, we are going to be very clear about what capabilities we want to give to our agent. Our agent, we want him to have those capabilities that we added in our web agent. Now ensure that have it in the entire structure JSON. Present the conversation that the call center conversation analysis is capable of existing. The questions of the abandoned article can exist before and can send the SMS code tools when we return to this section, and we will realize how the dynamic data works, and it is that here in this section. Here is the information that we sneak into the analysis and evaluation section of the same agent, and here in model configuration, we also have to present the dynamic, or here we see that I indicate that the client is subscribed to give their consent to SMS marketing. Here, this data I am placing what is extracted from the data that sends me, and here it indicates the status. Of active device consent. In addition, I ask you to be able to write a brief description of the abandoned article with this data. We have it. In this way, the tools will review it, summarize the entire exposition of the product. Below, we use dynamic data when defining the first conversation of our agent's name. Call the client's first name and the title of the product. And also in the tools, for example, here in the description, we put this function which has as purpose to send the client's consent with the word. Accepted or rejected. This is how we should complete all the body and the capabilities that for our agent also designed that it is possible to also use the module to be called. But you realize that it has the same structure, so here is the truth to start to be able to enable. I already have it summarized for this case for you, and you will be able to use this template every time you go back in your VAPI dashboard. Then click on your profile and select App Keys, where it indicates private key.
Here we have our receiver and secondary scenario in Make, in order to receive the signal from our first scenario. In the second module, we have our Shopify module, search, and our discount codes. As well, we have our router in order to send the same message, in this case with 3 modules. And here on Gmail, you can see our settings regarding with our dynamic data, as well as our script. As well as we have our tool related with sleep, which is a kind of delay. And in this case, we will example with 3 minutes in order to wait for the call is ended by our agent. So in this case, we can use all the data in order to have our VAPI call.
So that you can run your analysis that we previously configured. And as we see here, we will use this URL. You replace it. Here we will use the identifier that the web also brings us this configuration as it is. And here in value, as we saw before, you will replace your ID token. Finally, we configure our Google account. This is where the transcripts that our voice agent will collect will be sent the indicators, fields that we will already have configured in our Google Sheet. Here we have exactly the configuration. Here is the root of my Google Sheet that you must replace. And here are the values of the fields of the Google Sheet that already has them because I already configured them. And these are some examples of values that I already had. Simply relate them in our Shopify store. Here I carry 2 items to be able to simulate an abandoned cart. I will use this product of my cubic projector and back to our store Shopify in abandoned orders. We see how some records are created that are not smelled of tests. We see that here we see some data that Shopify captures emails, and that is we use for this demo. So from this module, I set a previous date. And then I put in play, we see how each module of receives the data. And in the HTTP module, we see how the output has status 200 with this. It means that the second scenario of May, it will be ready to be able to execute the VAPI call. So it has to receive the data, we are waiting, and correct, it is in the data, was sent, and now I get the call.
Hello, Christian. Say hello, Eva from 3Bs. They notified me that you recently abandoned your cart. Are you still interested in buying more Tuic Projector High 300?
Yes, I am interested. Although I do not remember the product well, can you give me a clear description?
Please wait 2 seconds. The MagQB Projector HY300 is a projector that offers immersive entertainment experiences in 4K resolution with Wi-Fi 6 connectivity, which makes it a complete entertainment center ideal for movie nights, games, or watching your favorite being.
Okay, I already remembered. And is this product subject to returns when I find some defect?
Yes. MagicCube Projector Y300 is subject to returns, so you can buy it with confidence. Also, if you want, I can send you a 20% discount code to your number. Would you like to receive it?
Sounds great. Yes, of course, yes.
Just take a second. I have activated the sending of your 20% discount code to your number. You will receive a message with the code shortly. It was a pleasure talking to you. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for considering 3Bs.
And the answer was like this in this mode of the delay. Elapsed to the seconds that we configured activate the API call to our application, and we had this amount of data this time, the transcript of the call, the summary, and among other data that we use in this node of the Google Sheet as a report. Here we have the titles, and here the previous have been recorded, and in this here call we have the phone number, the ID timestamp, the reason for completion, and call center metrics that we had specified from the prompt summary, and the complete transcript of the conversation. This can be continued to be developed depending on the issues, is that you have one with the person in charge sales, and that's all. If it was useful to you, support this channel by leaving us a like and subscribing so that we can continue bringing you more valuable content about AI and its impact, and leave us the comments if you think that voice caller agents will be in this sector, or if one day a voice agent will take you in. You won't notice it like this again soon, and if you are an enthusiast like me, or if you are a business owner and want to get the benefits of AI, well, I tell you that down in the comments you have the links so that you can contact us.